ජීවිතේ වැඩිපුර ලැබෙන හොඳම දේවල් විඳින්න. දැන් SLT broadband වෙතින් 75% දක්වා වැඩිපුර data සතුට ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම්.
Making headlines on First at 9. Appearing for the truth. Heated situation erupts at a side event of the UNHRC when Dr. Nalaka Godaheva attempts to clarify an issue raised by an LTTE sympathizer. Lack of translated copies. Parliamentarians want the bond scam debate to be taken up soon. Speaker says the issue will be raised at party leaders' meeting. On Inland Revenue Act. Finance Minister Mangala Samaraveera points out that tax compliance in Sri Lanka is one of the weakest in the region and it needs to be strengthened.
Yet there are many areas to improve. Our tax compliance is one of the weakest in the region.
Strategies for national finance. Central Bank Governor says that restoration of political stability is pivotal to achieve sustained economic growth.
The overall growth rate is disappointing. I think the Census and Statistics Department will put out a number which is not as high as we would like it to be.
Sri Lanka cricket. Mahela Jawardene says significant changes need to happen if Sri Lanka is to perform well in the international arena.
We are diluting our talent, so we're playing quantity rather than quality.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. The one to top story tonight. Retired Rear Admiral Sarath Weerasekara today questioned the UNHRC on whether it was violating the principles of impartiality and non-selectivity. He also questioned if the UNHRC was insulting the sovereignty of Sri Lanka, which their mandate requires them to respect. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Council yesterday adopted the final report of Sri Lanka's review under the third cycle of the Universal Periodic Review, which took place in November 2017. The Sri Lankan government's official delegation, headed by Foreign Affairs Minister Tilak Marapana, is due to make his statement in response to a written update to the Council by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Riyad Al Hussein, which is to be tabled tomorrow.
We also note that Sri Lanka has extended a standing invitation to all thematic special procedures, as well as recently acceding to the optional protocol on the cat. Furthermore, Sri Lanka's National Action Plan on Gender and Sexual-Based Violence demonstrates their commitment to promoting and protecting the rights of women.
UNFPA is supporting the Ministry of Health to develop a national condom security guideline and its optional promotional campaign to ensure enhanced access to commodities without stigma and discrimination. Strategies to raise awareness with all stakeholders will need to address myths and misconceptions surrounding family planning services. Further measures are needed to provide youth and adolescents and those falling outside of formal education settings with access to quality comprehensive.
We regret the government's decision to note 53 recommendations. The recommendations to develop a clear timeline and benchmarks for the implementation of the Human Rights Council Resolution 30/1 did not enjoy the government support. Such continuing indecisiveness today has given rise to intimidation and hate speech against minorities and human rights defenders committed to work with the government to effectively implement the transitional justice process, including the OMP. In his written update, which will be presented this week, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights also expresses his concerns about the absence of a comprehensive transitional justice strategy, including a clearly defined timeline for implementation.
Mr. President, out of 230 recommendations in UPR on Sri Lanka, the government has rejected none. I have served my motherland for 39 years in active service. Immediately after our victory over terrorists in this council, by resolution, congratulated us. But then the UN Secretary General, violating UN Charter, appointed panel of experts whose report, when commissioned, was objected to by Russia even at the Security Council. When an investigation on Sri Lanka was adopted, Pakistan said it was an intrusion on sovereignty and a crass example of double standard and hypocrisy. 24 members of this council did not support the investigation on us. The OISL report was highly flawed. You say we have deliberately prevented aid from reaching north when your own UN reps in Sri Lanka say we should be given a gold medal in that regard and we are a role model for the entire world. Lord Nasby's declaration at House of Lords referring to wartime dispatches from UK High Commission and 6 world-renowned experts have cleared us of war crimes, but yet you charge us without any evidence to appease the separatist Tamil diaspora. UK and USA also fight in terrorism. You don't force them to sign and legalize enforced disappearance convention, but you force us. Aren't you violating the principles of impartiality and non-selectivity? Aren't you insulting our sovereignty which your mandate requires you to respect? Transitional justice is due to alleged human rights violations.
Meanwhile, a tense situation occurred at a parallel event which is concurrently being held at the sidelines of the United Nations Human Rights Council session. Dr. Nalaka Gudaheva and several others from worldwide organizations represented the event. Meanwhile, Global Tamil Forum organized 2 forums yesterday in line with the 37th session of the UNHRC.
They form a nation, they have every right to seek self-determination. If you take Trincomalee, in the year 1881, the population of the Sinhalese in Trincomalee district was 3%. The population of the Tamils was 66%. 100 years later, 1981, the population of the Sinhalese has increased to 33%. In that sense, Tamils exclusively qualified as a nation to the right to self-determination. They have to decide what they want and not people living in the south who have to decide what the people of the north and the east want.
When I was walking in and I saw on the screen it's attack in Sri Lanka on Tamil-speaking Muslims, I was wondering whether you are talking about the 1990s when LTT asked the Muslim population in Jaffna Peninsula to leave the peninsula within 48 hours. And those who couldn't were killed. I don't know whether you remember in Kartukundi in 1990, 147 people, Muslims, were killed in a mosque, praying inside the mosque. That is how LTT treated Muslims. Sir, we never talk against Tamils. Tamils are our brothers who were born in the country, that is their country. There's no discrimination. We accept their right, but we don't accept terrorism. We don't accept people who supported terrorism. How many Sinhalese did they kill? Thousands and thousands of Sinhalese were killed. Here we don't talk about that. You said Trincomalee, Sinhalese population, 100 years ago 3%, then it went up. What about Velavath in Colombo? 100 years ago it was 1%. Now it is more than 80%. That is because people who live in the country, whether you are Sinhalese, whether you are Muslim, whether you are Tamil, you can travel anywhere in the country. That is your country. How dare you control and say,
they killed pregnant women. They cut to hack to death newborn children. They bomb buses. You want to see? I will give you this.
Single people also human. There is a human right.
These all kill the children and all.
Speaker Karu Jayasuriya informed the Parliament today that he had received copies of 7 petitions presented to the Supreme Court against the Judicature Amendment Act. Meanwhile, during the parliamentary session today, parliamentarians also focused on the controversial central bank bond issue and the debate on the report by the Commission of Inquiry.
This monetary scam disgraced the country, and certain groups go to courts against our efforts of making the judiciary system more efficient. They've shamelessly proven who they are to the country by doing that. All prominent ministers of the previous government switched into the current government, and all powerful members, including the president, are protecting all these fraudsters. We saw who went with the president on his state visit to Japan. They were murderers and fraudsters who engaged in wrongful acts along with Basil Rajapaksa. There are points to be included in the no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister. We must include the breaking of the 3 promises to the people of the country, where he said all fraudsters will be caught, they will be brought before justice, and all fraudulent activities will be stopped. None of the promises were kept. Separate courts must soon be established, and the bond scam must be its first case.
The parliamentarians also inquired from the Speaker regarding the debate on the report by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the central bank bond issuances.
There was a debate in the Parliament regarding the infamous bond report, but upon a request by a parliamentarian, the debate was postponed until reports consisting of all 3 languages are presented to the Parliament. We'd like to know what's the progress in that regard. I received a letter from the Presidential Secretariat yesterday saying it will take another month since there are thousands of pages of the report. The debate was to be held by Friday, but we'd have to postpone it. There were 2 Presidential Commission reports and only one was presented in Sinhala. But the Bond Commission report is in English, which we can take up for debate. It was decided during the party leaders' meeting to have the debate once both reports are presented to Parliament. But I'll address your concern with the party leaders. It's unfair that this translation problem has become the obstacle for us to have the debate on the bond report. It is happening in a backdrop where there is going to be a no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister. It's unfair to debate today on a report talking about fraudulent activities of others and have the debate about a report proving your own fraudulent activities on another day. We must have the debate on both of these reports now. So we ask you to allocate a parliamentary staff for the job, if necessary.
The term of office for 340 local authorities elected through the 2018 local authorities election commenced today. Appointments of mayors and chairmen who claimed over 50% of votes, as well as those who did not hold a majority at the local authorities election, will take place during their respective inaugural meetings. According to the final results of the 2018 local authorities election, 8,356 members were elected to the 340 local authorities, and on the 9th of this month, the Gazette notification inclusive of the list of names were directed to the government printer. The Gazette notification was published on the 16th and it includes the names of the members of 24 districts with 25% representation. The Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Authorities said that the terms of office of the local authorities start from today. The commissioners of the respective local authorities have notified the date of the inaugural meeting through a Gazette notification.
According to the Act, appointing the mayor or the chairman will be done under the chairing of the commissioner of the local authority. Even that election will be done either openly or in secret according to the preference of the members.
In the meantime, those who contested for the Colombo Municipal Council and won took their oaths in the presence of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday. Rosi Senanayake was sworn in as the mayor of Colombo Municipal Council. She goes down in history as the first female mayor in the country.
We ran the municipal council for 25 years without the power of the central government being with us. But this time, these members were elected under a UNP government. We have a huge responsibility to fulfill during the next 4 years. And we should fulfill the promises we have given.
We
have to solve the issues of the day-to-day lives of the people living in Colombo. The majority of the people living in Colombo are poor. Therefore, we have to visit them and speak to them. They have hope that they will receive your assistance. So do your job well.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna candidates who won seats in local government bodies belonging to several districts took their oaths before former President Mahinda Rajapaksa today. Candidates who represented local government bodies of Ratnapura, Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa districts from the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna took their oaths before former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. The swearing-in ceremony took place at the residence of the former president located at Vijayarama Mawate in Colombo.
This election victory was a historic one. I don't believe anywhere in the world a newly formed few-month-old political party got this type of a resounding election victory by defeating other political parties with over 60 years of history. It is quite visible as to how unstable the government is. Several other elections will be held in the near future, and the behavior and work ethic of the candidates will determine the results of those elections. It's easy to win, but what's important is maintaining it.
Meanwhile, views were expressed regarding the failure to establish over 50% of the power quota in certain local government bodies.
The SLPP has the ability to appoint chairman and deputy chairman for 150 local government bodies without consulting any other political party. And in 71 other local government bodies, we've established ourselves as the majority party. But we don't have the necessary 50% power quota in those local bodies. We expect to discuss with other political parties regarding these particular local government bodies and establish our power in those as well.
We can
see that they are having secret deals to appoint chairman for the local bodies now. We are not safe either from these deals because they are talking about them with us as well. Can a government which couldn't appoint a single chairman for a Pradesh Sabha solve other issues of the country?
Minister of Megapolis and Western Development Partly Champika Ranawaka presented a cabinet paper regarding the stability of the government and the country's future. This was presented during the cabinet meeting chaired by President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning at the President's Secretariat office. Meanwhile, both the government and opposition parliamentarians expressed their views over the proposed no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
According to the 59th cabinet paper, Minister Partly Champika Ranawaka commented on the country's stability and future. He said that if the government does not restructure itself, then we will collapse. Minister Dr. Raja Senaratne, who was in agreement with him, said that if this does not take place, then they themselves will have to make a decision. I too wish to say that the government is on the wrong path. The President and the Prime Minister needs to discuss this matter with each other and do something about it. If not, we will resort to taking a decision ourselves. We did. The joint opposition said that if the no-confidence motion is passed, then they will decide who will become the next speaker. Thereafter, an impeachment motion will be tabled against the Prime Minister and changes will be made in the government. If we are to address these issues, we need to restructure our government. We do not like Ranil, nor do we trust him. We too are in support of the no-confidence motion, but we must also understand that underneath all of this, there is no confidence motion against Mahinda Rajapaksa and Maithripala Sirisena. Such no-confidence motions will have a negative impact on the country, but it is also necessary to create a wholesome political climate. SP Dissanayake, who is holding our ministerial positions, said that a no-confidence motion will be tabled against the Prime Minister within this week. All 150 MPs of ours have decided that we will protect the Prime Minister so he will be able to function in his capacity till 2020. As of now, 50 MPs have given their signatures, not only from the joint opposition, but there are those within the government as well. We hope to give the no-confidence motion to the Speaker within this week. The support is not only given by a signature, but there are those who will be in favour of a no-confidence motion on the day a vote is taken on this, as it is their duty and responsibility.
Minister of Tourism Development John Amaratunga appealed to the diplomatic community that since the state of emergency of the country is removed, they should advise their respective countrymen to visit Sri Lanka again. He said this addressing a media briefing held in Colombo yesterday.
Last couple of weeks, there have been a huge amount of publicity given that Sri Lanka is unsafe. Therefore, the President of the country had to declare emergency in order to prevent any upheaval taking place in the country due to certain incidents that took place. Now the President of Sri Lanka has removed the emergency. Why? Because the country has come back to normalcy. All places of tourist interest are now absolutely safe and motorable and accessible. So there is nothing to be frightened or alarmed for any foreign individual to travel about in Sri Lanka. Now, another reason why we were worried is there are a couple of adverse travel advisories that went out to the different parts of the universe because Sri Lanka was considered a hotspot, a country with so much of tourist interest. Now it is therefore our duty to appeal to the diplomatic community. Since emergency has been revoked and country has returned to normalcy, therefore they should advise their countrymen not to fear, to come back once again, that Sri Lanka is quite normal and safe for any tourist who wishes to visit Sri Lanka.
The fourth batch of devotees who won the privilege of being part of the Dambadiva Vandana program organized by FM Derana paid homage to the ancient city of Kapilavastu yesterday, where Prince Siddhartha spent his childhood. Afterwards, they travelled to the city of Shravasti. There, the devotees engaged in religious observances at Ananda Bodhya. The devotees are due to travel to the city of Sankasa to pay homage to the tooth relic. The 95 devotees will come back to Kapilavastu after they conclude their journey in Nepal. The fifth phase of the Dambadiva Vandana program organized by FM Derana is now in effect.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, says that restoration of political stability is pivotal to achieve sustained economic growth in the country. Meanwhile, following the Department of Census and Statistics withdrawing the report of the gross domestic product for 2017 and its fourth quarter shortly after it was published last Friday, the governor hinted that the country's overall growth rate for 2017 was rather disappointing. He made this remark at an event in Colombo today.
The launch of the development process of Sri Lanka's first national financial inclusion strategy was held in Colombo under the auspices of Governor of Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy. The launch also saw the participation of representatives from relevant ministries, banking institutions and professional bodies who are part of the consultative process. The formulation of a national financial inclusion strategy is identified as a policy framework and strategic tool to develop accessible, effective, efficient and affordable financial services which are responsive to the needs of the population in the country, including those excluded from the formal financial system. Governor of CBSL, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, delivered the keynote address at the event.
So the restoration of political stability is of paramount importance. It is particularly important at this juncture because we were beginning to see some progress in a positive direction, both in terms of strengthening the macroeconomic fundamentals of the country, as well as putting in place a framework that would give us sustained growth. We are down to 4.5% as far as headline inflation is concerned. And core inflation right through has been within our target 4 to 6%, and we think that it will remain there for the course of this year.
The governor also commented on the growth rate of the economy.
The overall growth rate is disappointing. The Census and Statistics Department will put out a number which is not as high as we would like it to be. But the underlying fundamentals in terms of the growth framework seem to be improving. And I should mention here too that we should guard against the danger of going for short-term, expedient solutions to push up the growth rate. I don't think this is the time to deviate from the path that we have embarked upon.
Meanwhile, country manager of IFC, Amina Arif, said that lack of financial inclusion remains a key constraint for growth across many sectors in the country.
You have 17% of women who've been successful in borrowing from the formal financial sector. Yet, in the informal microfinance market, 80% of the borrowers are women. Despite a high account penetration rate, the number of individuals who reported no deposit and no withdrawal in the past year, so that means no activity in their accounts, was 31%. The insurance sector is also significantly underdeveloped, which leaves enterprises and individuals vulnerable. Less than 15% of SMEs and 1% of micro-enterprises used any form of insurance. This indicates that there is a significant potential for better financial access and inclusion.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan government hopes to increase the share of direct income tax against indirect taxes by a ratio of 40% to 60% from the current ratio of 18% to 82% by 2020. Addressing a public seminar organized by the Inland Revenue Department on the new Inland Revenue Act yesterday, Finance Minister Mangala Samaraweera pointed out that tax compliance in Sri Lanka is one of the weakest in the region and it needs to be further strengthened.
The Inland Revenue Act No. 24 of 2017 was passed in Parliament on the 7th of September last year. The government aims to improve tax compliance by strengthening administrative powers of the Inland Revenue Department while targeting for a paradigm shift to taxation that will help achieve development goals for the future. The government also expects that the Act will promote the business climate in Sri Lanka by enhancing the taxpayers' protection while attracting foreign direct investments. The new Act will come into effect on the 1st of April this year.
Over 2 decades of Sri Lanka recorded, unfortunately, as you know, a downward tax revenue that reached just over 10% in 2014 as a share of the GDP. Sri Lanka was among the lowest tax revenue countries in the world and in the region. Despite the continued rise in income levels, our tax revenue failed to record any improvements, and some experts opined that on one hand our tax system was complex and confusing, and on the other hand there were numerous ad hoc tax concessions, over 200 of them, which were granted without any rationale. The elimination of tax exemptions through this new act create a level playing field for everyone to do business, moving away from the culture of preferential treatments. We expect to increase the share of direct income tax against indirect taxes. The preferred ratio or the target we are aiming for by 2020 is 40% to 60%, from the current level of 18% to 82%. We are aiming at lessening imbalances in income and wealth creation in the country as we progress towards an upper middle income country. Yet, there are many areas to improve. Our tax compliance is one of the weakest in the region. The number of individuals and firms registered for paying taxes still remain at a surprisingly low level. And as countries grow, income tax share ought to grow along with it and parallelly.
The share market fell for a second straight session today and posted their lowest close in 7 weeks in low trade as investors sold diversified and beverage stocks on worries of slower economic growth. The Colombo share price index fell 0.48% to 6,462.5, while the S&P 20 fell 0.76% to 3,641.46. Meanwhile, turnover was 286.7 million rupees, which is less than a third of this year's daily average of around 942.3 million rupees. For more details, we have Imesh Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The market capitalization at the end of the day was 3,017.37 billion rupees. Today's foreign purchases were 96.04 million rupees and foreign sales were 123.8 million rupees. There were 2 crossings today and the crossing turnover was 50.2 million rupees.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
The UK's Information Commissioner is to apply to court for a warrant to search the offices of London-based political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica. The company is accused of using the personal data of 50 million Facebook members to influence the US presidential election in 2016.
Facebook Inc.'s shares fell more than 4% in pre-market trading yesterday after media reports emerged that a political consultancy gained inappropriate access to data on 50 million Facebook users. Facebook disclosed the issue in a blog post last Friday, hours before media reports emerged that conservative-leaning Cambridge Analytica, a data company known for its work on Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, was given access to the data and may not have deleted it. Facebook said in a statement that a Cambridge University psychology professor had lied to the company and violated its policies by passing data to Cambridge Analytica from an app he had developed. Cambridge Analytica and the professor have denied any wrongdoing. The head of the European Parliament said yesterday that EU lawmakers will investigate whether the data misuse has in fact taken place, adding that the allegation is an unacceptable violation of citizens' privacy rights.
As Sri Lanka's woes continue to grow in international cricket, former Sri Lanka skipper Mahela Jayawardena urged local cricket authorities to embrace the significant changes taking place in world cricket to be a competitive force in international cricket. SLC has been under fire for most quarters, with many past and present cricketers uniting in their call for a radical change to the existing first-class structure, a fundamentally flawed system which has been conveniently overlooked by successive administrators.
The former Sri Lanka captain Mahela Jayawardena explains why he believes Sri Lanka cricket's domestic structure has to change if the national team is to do consistently well in the international arena.
We have a first-class cricket structure which has 24 teams. Australia has the same population, has 5 teams. India has 1.5 billion, they have 30 teams. We have 20 million people, we have 24 teams. We are diluting our talent, so we are playing quantity rather than quality. So while we keep the club cricket structure going, we need to come up with a plan that we play at a much higher level our domestic cricket and challenge them and see who are the best who could represent Sri Lanka.
South Africa's spearhead Kagiso Rabada will play in the third test in Cape Town after successfully overturning a 2-match suspension for making contact with Australia captain Steve Smith. The 22-year-old was initially deemed to have deliberately made contact with Smith after dismissing him in the second test.
Initially charged with a Level 2 breach of the ICC Code of Conduct for making inappropriate and deliberate physical conduct with Australia's captain Steve Smith on day 1 of the second test, Kagiso Rabada has instead been found guilty of conduct that is contrary to the spirit of the game. It means Rabada's 3 demerit points penalty from the original charge has been erased and replaced with 1 demerit point, taking his total to 7 and allowing him to continue to play in the rest of the series. Having taken an incredible 11 wickets in the second test, Rabada leads all bowlers with 15 for the series at an average of 16.8.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Let's now cross over to Manusha Jayatilaka at the Other Derana Weather Centre.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Now, a low pressure zone is closing in on the island from the southeast part of the country. This will of course bring some turbulent weather conditions to many provinces over the next few days. But for tomorrow, you will experience rather sunny weather conditions with temperatures varying between 21 to 31 degrees Celsius. Although tomorrow is going to have some favorable weather conditions over most parts of the island, our viewers in the western province in particular will experience some heavy showers. Well, that's it from your weather center tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And before we go, we'd like to take you to Nuwara, also known as Little England, for its cool weather and the eye-catching scenery it offers tourists. Hope you enjoy these visuals and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.